Come on. And we are live. Lester, the Bears did it. How did that happen? Who could have possibly seen it coming? It sure wasn't me, but the Bears come out of Foxborough with a definitive 33-14 lead. Pinch me, because the Bears almost, Lester, not only did the Bears take what felt like a fairly definitive 10-0 lead, but then after getting zapped, they immediately retook the lead and never gave it back up. Before we get into actually recording the show, Lester, how do you feel in general? The people want to know.
Well, this has to be the best Justin Fields game to date. If you're going by his career so far, it's, he executed the offense pretty good. He ran the ball. I like what Luke Getsy did early on, and I think that his supporting cast still is not what we all want it to be. But I think the talent that Justin Fields has started shining through tonight.
Yep. Okay, so some quick questions that I see answered. Cooper, you ask, will the All-22 breakdown still be tomorrow? I am sure aiming for it. That's not my call. It's as much a matter of when the NFL publishes the All-22, but I'll check a couple different sources, work literally every angle I have, and as soon as I get it, watch through it. 8 p.m. tomorrow, unless you otherwise hear. Ramon Alexander, thank you so much for jumping on in. Marshall, what's up? Great to see you. Guys, we've got a big Bears game that we get the chance to talk about today. Lester, look, the Bears went from probably not being favored in literally any football game going forward, especially if they lost this one as would have been expected of them, to a definitive statement that they are not caving to the tank, no matter what anybody, whether wants or thinks. And honestly, Lester, if this is what these games look like, look, I get it. They're not going to dominate all the time. What I mean is a competitive football team, a very sticky, spicy defense that seems like it took the Vikings game personally with an underscore and bolded. I think this is the kind of season that we can easily appreciate, especially since Lester. This is a bit tongue-in-cheek, sure, but apparently all the Bears have to do is play good defenses, and they'll score more than 20, as the Packers game, the San Fran game, or like this game right here. Like, don't play the Lions. You never know, but Dallas, we need to watch out at this point.
Well, this shows you the coaching staff. They took that mini bye and they put it to use. They came out and they had a nice game plan set up here. And look, the whole tank thing, coaches don't tank. Players don't tank. That's not even in their vocabulary. Organizations might tank. By deciding to give you a bunch of garbage on your roster because they realize that, they're handcuffed, whatever it is. But players and coaches don't tank. They want to hear nothing about that. They're trying to win the game, and that's what the Bears are going to do. They're going to go out there and they're going to try their best each week. It may not always work, but here we go.
Yep. Perfect. All right. So Lester, you ready to record?
Hey, real quick, some more stuff, because you have your show tomorrow night if it goes.
Yes.
But we're having Bear and Balance tomorrow at our usual 6:00 time, but we're going to do it a day later because the Monday nighter. So me and JB will be here 6:00 tomorrow, Bear and Balanced, and then we never go 2 hours. So
see, now Lester,
we will be done in time for the Robert Schmitz 5-hour marathon if you got your All-22.
See, now Lester, that just sounds like a really wonderful Windy City Gridiron
all
marathon
night, baby.
evening.
Yes,
absolutely. You grab yourself a large popcorn from your local movie theater. You grab yourself some a couple beverages. You could probably grab yourself a whole 6-pack, honestly, just with the time that would go into it. And then you'll hear some incredibly balanced takes from Bear and Balanced, and then go straight into seeing what happened in the back end of the game. I'm excited. It should be great. Yeah, a blanket, Derek. That's a great way to put it. A raincoat if you're anywhere near Foxborough or Dallas, as it was rainy. Honestly, I texted Lester halfway through, not sure we were going to be able to do the show. It was thundering and raining so bad. But yeah, Bears analysis top to bottom as the Bears get set to take on a Dallas team that, hey, honestly, Lester, now you got me charged up. This may be just the motivation that I needed. Like, if you guys are generous tomorrow night, you may just get yourself a preview stream as we take a look at whether the Bears, hey, I'm just saying, saying, Lester, now I'm curious, like how fanged is this Dallas defense? I want to know. And usually when I go looking for answers, I need to show them to everybody else because what did the Bears do that really worked? Like we can talk, Lester. This is where you and I can talk about what they did from a results perspective, but we can't really see what the Patriots were doing that they were taking advantage of. That's what the all 22 is for, right? And
Yeah.
so if we take a look at how have the Patriots been succeeding, and can the Bears do any of that against Dallas to success? I'm curious as much as anything else, but I know that we've got to get the podcast recorded. Are you ready to do it? Because I am.
I'm ready. While you're doing your intro, I'm going to start sharing this all over our socials because I forgot to do that since I'm usually
Perfect.
All right. We're good. Do your thing. I'm ready.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Bear With Me, a Chicago Bears podcast hosted by yours truly, Robert Schmitz, right here on the Windy City Gridiron podcast channel, coming at you in a dream state, a lucid, wonderful Bears dream, as they have walked into Foxborough, a place where no young quarterback returns unscathed, and walked out with a shockingly dominant 33-14 win. Apparently, Lester, who's my guest this week, Bill Belichick must not have been kidding when he spent 7 minutes talking up the Chicago Bears, and you almost have to wonder whether his team should have listened. How are you feeling about all this?
That was a hell of a win. I mean, that's what you want to see out of the young quarterback, Justin Fields. He had a great game. You know, the offensive line had a pretty good job. They gave us some sacks, but as far as the run game goes, they were making holes. The defense came through. This was a Coach Eberflus style of a win right here for the Bears.
You say that, Lester, but when you say Coach Eberflus style win, I know I would think defense, running the ball, and keeping the score low. But 33 points does not speak to that. This was like a new age. Honestly, I hate to say it in such simple terms. It was like a graduated 2022 version of a Lovie Smith win, where we saw designer quarterback runs. We saw aggressive offense when it needed to be. We saw some dynamic quarterback play. We saw multiple third and longs converted, multiple third downs converted over, or like easily the most of the season. We saw a smart coach ask his offensive coordinator to go get him field goals when the Bears were in second, third, and long situations, and Cairo came in and converted. He has yet to miss one, knock on wood. Obviously, not the whole game was perfect, but Lester, if you're looking for a signature win after the glow of the San Francisco win has faded, there's really not much that you can look at in this one and not come away from smiling, right?
I looked it up when the game was like midway through the fourth quarter. This is the most points the Bears have scored since 2020 when they beat the Jags in
Wow.
December. So, it hasn't happened in a long time. So the offense was clicking. And, again, hats off to the coaching staff. But man, Justin Fields had an outstanding game. He took the new game plan. I'm not sure the numbers, but this probably was his most designed runs in any game
Easily.
in his career. So, I still say that's not his game. That's not his forte. He's not Lamar Jackson. That's not his style of play. But when you have a weapon like that, you have his speed like that, you've got to use it to stress the defense. Because now when the defense starts thinking about those rollouts are going to be runs, now you pull it, now you throw it, and now it gives you more options in the passing game.
Well, Lester, it's funny because now that you mention it, okay, so we have to ask the question, what is a designed run, right? Is a zone read where Fields pulls the ball a designed run, or is it an option run? Obviously, there's a lot we could pick apart here, but certainly Fields, he had 13 runs in the game, and if I just had to guess, going entirely off the top of my head, only 4 of them were what you would call designed. All the same, they were great replacements for short yardage plays that the Bears have struggled to create earlier in the season, and then the Bears got away from them as soon as they were working because they showed the opponent that they could do it and then didn't need to do it anymore. And that is exciting, honestly, Lester, because I don't want, just like you do, to see Fields take 15 hits a game off of these kinds of designed runs. 4 yards just isn't worth it. But on those designed runs, he got outside the tackle box. He used the blockers that were in front of him. And if memory serves, on all 4 of them, he stepped out of bounds and didn't end up taking a hit. Now, there's a lot we could talk about Justin Fields. Lester could probably fill up a whole podcast. But if I was going to ask you, almost Bear and Balance style, what is the biggest takeaway that you had with Fields today? Did you think that he had as strong a game as it certainly felt like? And if he did, what specifically did you see?
In the moment, I feel he did. I mean, I'll go back and watch the game again and find out more for sure. But I thought in the moment, I thought he was smart with the football. You know, he had the one interception of a tip ball. He's got to clean it up. He had the one time when he was scrambling and he had the ball a little too low. He seems to have gotten into some habits every now and again where he carries the ball a little too low. I know that's something he worked on in the offseason is holding the ball higher. So I'm sure that's something that they're going to get back to him and they're going to really coach that up again because you know, you've got to have it up there high. It's got to be up, you know, always up, get closer to your chest, a little tighter. The one fumble he had when he was running, it was a really fluky thing. He got tripped, he lost his balance, the ball hit his knee, he lost it. It happens. These things are you're not going to have a perfectly clean game when you're a guy like him trying to get all around the field. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty smart game plan all around, and I thought he executed it as smart as he could.
Absolutely. And I mean, Lester, let's talk about the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about nor feels the need to talk about because the Bears won so convincingly. It was another wet day. Fields has relatively small hands. We've seen the impact of what wetness generally does to Fields' ability to control the football. So this wasn't supposed to be his day. A fumble like what you're talking about, unsurprising. Fields could barely hold on to the football against San Francisco, and doggone it, it was just about raining that hard again. But Lester, I think now look, this is a very the take I'm about to give you is very process over results, right? But I think if there's anything that I was excited about, Lester, Fields took 4 sacks. Now, technically, at least one of them wasn't a quote unquote real sack, as it was him stepping out of bounds. But Fields took 4 sacks, all of them in the first half. And in the second half, somebody clearly talked to him, whether it was him taking a look at the tablets, whether it was his quarterback's coach getting with him. And I'm sure you saw it, but in the second half, he would take the snap, roll into his spot, throw the ball. If the throw wasn't there, he put it a couple feet over his receiver's head. And you know what? If they didn't catch it, they didn't catch it, and it was 2nd and 10. Fields played on time, didn't take those 9-yard sacks, didn't need to make crazy plays in the pocket that potentially risked even bigger like losses for the offense. And the Bears were able to just keep clicking out drive after drive after drive after drive. Where they took 3, they took 3, they took 7, they took 3 more. And slowly but surely, the game was out of hand for the New England Patriots. Look, I love dynamic quarterback play. Who doesn't? But Fields has been a little too boom or bust for any offense to consistently function. To see him in that second half take shots, but make sure they were calculated shots. If you don't see Darnell Mooney downfield on an obvious double move where that is the only place you're looking, throw the ball. You don't need to look at your second option. And lo and behold, Lester, just like we saw on that 3rd and 9 at the 21-yard line, Sam Mustipher's man was walking him back into Fields' face. And if he hadn't thrown it at that snappy 2.7-second mark, it would have been another sack. And a 38-yard field goal could have been a 47-yard field goal. And that just changes the math a lot. I know. Boring stuff, right, Lester? It's not points. It's not sexy. It's not designed runs. It's not breaking tackles. But all these things that Fields has made look so hard need to become easier for him. And I was really excited to see the simple stuff start to look simple here in the second half.
I enjoy the layups. I enjoy a quarterback making a smart play, even if that smart play, like you said, is a throwaway. To me, that shows growth in a quarterback. If a quarterback still is trying to hold on to the ball too long, which Justin Fields still does, I mean that's part of his game, and it may always be part of his game. But he has to know when to do that, when not to do that. And I think that it's again quarterback growth. We say it all the time is not linear. This is something he's learning as he goes. I still feel he'll get there at some point, but the whole point of this thing right now is he's got to make that decision when it's there. He's got to make a check down when it's there. If he, like you said, if he has a guy deep, put the ball up only where your guy can get it. He missed a couple guys tonight, but I think part of that was he was making sure the ball was out there in a place where his guy can go try and make a play, and it was not in a danger of being intercepted. I thought he was smart with the ball. Overall, man, there's really no complaints about this game.
No.
You can't look at nothing he did and say, "Oh, that was a bad decision." I know there was one play where he kind of held the ball a little bit, and I know he had David Montgomery over the middle. He kind of held it, kind of drift a little bit, try to make a play downfield. But we're talking about a guy that wants to make a big play. He's trying to help his team win. I can't fault him for those. No one is going to make the easy smart play every single play. Sometimes you're going to hold those chances, and that's what makes those big plays pop when they do.
Oh, sure, Lester, but at the same time, we saw Fields look at least two reads downfield, then kick to the backside of the formation and spot up Equidamius St. Brown coming wide open on a crosser for an
ESB.
easy first
Yeah,
down. And a couple plays before that, whew, Lester. I mean, did you see that throw to Cole Kmet? Like number
beautiful.
85. You have my attention. What a ball.
I mean, Cole Kmet has got the talent. He's got the size. He has good enough speed. He just has not been able to show it consistently enough. And that was a nice play. And I know on social media some fans were cracking on him for thinking he didn't make that catch. But hey, he didn't see the out of bounds. He didn't see the sideline there. All he knows he came down. He wasn't sure if his butt got in or not. He wanted to make sure he got his team to the line. That was a smart heads up play by Cole Kmet. Forcing the Patriots' hand. And now all of a sudden he's doing that. He's trying to hustle the line. And I'm sure the coaches over there are really hustling to try and get the replays in. I'm not sure if they had a chance to look at it or not. It ended up being a good catch. That was a nice play by him. And I thought Cole Kmet had a pretty good game blocking as well this week, too.
I thought he did. I mean, like you said, Lester, just not a lot to complain about. And you know what? I've been talking about it on Twitter for a little while. It's not like Luke Getzey, whoa, Luke Getzey, listen to me. This is not where we're about to go, but it's more that Fields has had a real issue with the quick game. And honestly, the Bears pivoting to exactly the same solution that the Ravens did a little while ago. Lester, when the Bears drafted a pocket passer out of Ohio State, I did not expect to be sitting here saying that they implemented Greg Roman's solution with Lamar Jackson, but the occasional quarterback run, a little bit more green light for Fields to use his legs, really seemed to help the Bears stay efficient on those early downs and allow Fields to maintain most of his passing attack in the intermediate and deep areas of the field, where I thought he threw the ball relatively well from a play action perspective, from deep overs, a couple of the other throws he made. Nothing outside of that Kmet throw was outstandingly crazy, but he made a lot of plays where I felt like he was able to, because they were able to get the ball out of his hands. And hey, Lester, I loved it when they went empty gun, when Fields was able to see the engage 8 blitz that was coming right at him. He was able to get the ball out to Khalil Herbert. And obviously, credit to Braxton Jones, credit to Equinemius St. Brown, who ESB by himself, Lester, might have already made more successful blocks in just 7 games than the entire Bears receiving core from 2018 through 2021 under the Nagy era. I mean, he has been such a crisp blocker. I think he might have so far blocked this season better than some tight ends, but they were able to open up an easy looking seam for Herbert. I don't know, Lester, if there was any specific play that I could look at from today and say, wow, the Bears looked particularly good on that particular play. They just got way more right than they got wrong. And 33 points shows a lot. They were just the better team.
Well, we've seen in so many games this year where everyone does their job except for 1 or 2 guys.
Right.
And that's all it takes in the NFL. I mean, if everyone does their job and then there's a missed block and that's a critical block on the play side, the play's blown up. And tonight, most guys did their job. I was a little concerned when Lucas Patrick went out of the game at center. Sam Mustipher came in. Yeah, he had a couple Sam Mustipher like plays. That one goofy play where he was, I don't know what the hell was going on, where he was kind of wandering around to the sideline, and Justin Fields took that horrible sack. But for the most part, most guys did their job tonight, and it showed up in the running game. I mean, Fields ran good, Montgomery ran good, Herbert ran good. I mean, the jet sweep to Pettis, that picked up a lot of yards. So the running game was clicking pretty good tonight, and that's a credit to the O line, and it's a credit to the tight ends, and it's a credit to Justin Fields. Like we talked about earlier, the threat of him as a runner that helps pull away some linebacker flow. If you have to worry about Fields keeping it or holding it or not, coming back to the boot side, that's something else to think about. All these things kind of play into a defense's mindset, and it helps create running lanes. And, we saw tonight Montgomery and Herbert, they both had 62 yards. I think they took advantage of what they had.
And you know what, Lester? Even the mistakes weren't all that bad. I mean, mostly today, if we were going to talk mistakes, just for everybody out there that wants to talk about the things that went wrong, some are going to point to Fields' passing total with 179 yards, and I'd respond he had 82 rushing yards. I mean, normally you don't see a disparity quite that great. That's a 250 net game with 2 touchdowns and an interception, which, by the way, Lester, we aren't talking about an interception that went off somebody's face. something that's connected to somebody's shoulders. It went off of somebody's hands outstretched. And in the same game, for crying out loud, the Bears showed that Fields isn't the only one that eats some of these, as they picked off Bailey Zappi the exact same way. I mean, not everything's unlucky necessarily, but it was an efficient and effective game for the Bears offense that, dare I say it, got just about everything that they wanted. And speaking of Lester, we've got to talk a little bit about the Bears defense before we go to break. I mean, we talked just a minute ago about the Bears getting just about everything they wanted. This new look Alan Williams defense that, Lester, I don't know what happened. I don't know what conversations went on between the first 4 weeks where the Bears were static to the point of being boring, so much so that they made life as easy as it'll get for the Vikings in the first 3 drives of week 4 to where they are now. But we are seeing mug fronts with simulated pressure, aggressive blitzing, Roquan blitzing with his hair on fire, picks, rolling safeties, disguises. Who talked to Williams? I don't know, but it is a complete new look defense, and it is suffocating. I mean, not only did they clamp down on Mac Jones, but after Bailey Zappi caught a hold of 2 broken coverages, they clamped down on him too. I mean, is there anybody in particular that sticks out to you, or does this just look like a team unit?
Yeah, I mean, it's good. They're playing good team football right now. I think part of it is just we talked a lot about Luke Getsy's offensive scheme that offensive players having to come into their own. It was a new scheme on the defensive side of things as well. I mean, these guys were all learning a new scheme, and I think Alan Williams as a play caller, he hasn't called plays since the Vikings in I think 2011, 2012. So it was his first time called plays in a while as well. So I think as a whole, as a unit, they're trying to find each other. You know, the play caller is trying to find out what he could do best. The players are trying to find out what they could do. And I think at some point along the way, they realized they can't just run this Tampa 2-ish style of defense where a lot of it is, gap control, a real good zone behind it, because, there's still some holes there. These guys they don't trust each other. The trust isn't there yet. So I think as Alan Williams realizes what he has, he's got to do a few more things. He has to do, like you said, the mug looks. He has to do some more blitzing and stuff. And Roquan Smith is an outstanding blitzer. He has shown that his entire career. Part of it is that first step quickness. We saw his sack tonight. He delayed. He kind of snuck around a kind of loop, and he was still on the quarterback like that. It's part of it is because he's just so fast. So those delays, you don't see him coming on offense. And then he's past you. So
I mean,
just a good all around play call right there, and what they're doing as well as a whole, just a good job.
Lester, to that end, I can't say it enough. There are so many linebackers in the NFL. To everybody listening, next time you watch an NFL game, watch for this. You will see it all over the place, where linebackers either creep up to the line of scrimmage, they cheat. Right? If they're blitzing, you will see them walking up and then they blitz, and it tells the offense, hey, I'm coming. Or they blitz from depth, as it's called, Lester, and they don't get anywhere close. Yeah. Roquan Smith, 58. If there's anything, I have been a borderline Roquan hater. If you haven't said you're not even borderline, you're just a Roquan hater. Like, I'm telling you, Lester, I don't think there's a single linebacker anywhere near as good at blitzing as Roquan Smith is, because he can blitz from depth and he will just blow by the entire offensive line before they've even recognized he's coming. He is probably the single best disguised backer blitzer in the NFL. And I mean, he's got 2.5 sacks basically with 2 weeks of the green light. I mean, I understand that there are concerns about whether or not he can get off a block, but in this avenue specifically, Lester, there's just nobody better. I mean, I'm not even trying to just be a fan. Like, he takes one step downhill, and you've got offensive linemen. I mean, you saw it last week, Lester. What kind of a linebacker does it take to get offensive linemen in a professional football league falling backwards onto their butt because the one linebacker got between them so quickly that they just can't react fast enough to get a hand on him? I mean, it's fun watching him succeed, because when he does, he looks like a real weapon. Worth $20 million? Let's let smarter people than us answer that question. But a fun football player to watch nevertheless.
Well, it's a big game for him. I mean, it was national TV. He had a chance to come out there and show what he could do. He had 12 tackles. He had a sack. He had the interception. He had a tackle for loss. He had a nice all-around game, and he showed the total package of what he is and what he can be in this defense. And, I don't know how much he'll get paid, in the market. I don't know if the Bears want to sign him, before he hits the open market, but I like him as a football player. I think it's a good fit for this defense. It's just a lot of money. I mean, you have to see what, this is, like you said, guys that are paid to make these decisions have to make this decision. And you got to see what you can afford, what else you got to bring in. You got a few other guys in here you're going to have to pay soon as well. So does Roquan come back? Yeah, I think they try and figure something out. I think he's a nice fit. And I think he's just a too talented a guy to let walk away. I mean, there's, this homegrown guy. Yeah, he's not their pick. But look, he's been a Bear. He's been a successful Bear, a two-time second-team All-Pro, probably on his way to a third All-Pro type season. I think you got to figure out a way to get Roquan back.
And hey, Lester, as much as we would make fun of it, I have said for years since 2020 that Roquan Smith, you remember the 2020 Saints game where in overtime, Drew Brees threw what should have been a game-icing pick six and Roquan dropped
You
it?
missed it, yeah.
It felt like that play was the difference between Roquan making the Pro Bowl that year and not making the Pro Bowl that year, because he didn't end up making it. He was considered a snub. As much as we would laugh about it, Lester, these national TV games are big for those kinds of voting things. And this was a huge game for number 58. I mean, hey, look, if you wanted to be even Snyder, Lester, Ryan Poles has got to be grinning ear to ear, because you got to think the phone rings a little bit louder after a linebacker goes out, has a pick, and like a sack, a pick. And did you say forced fumble recovery too?
Tackle for loss.
Tackle for loss. Yeah. That's it. But
that's good. Those work.
Of course, absolutely. But all the same, Lester, it was a magical game for the Chicago Bears. Not everything was perfect, but after the break, I do want to ask you a couple pointed questions about a specific area of expertise of yours. Until then, though, Lester, let's let the sponsors get the word in. We will be right back after the break. And we are back with Bear With Me as Lester Wiltfong and I are going through the Chicago Bears game bit by bit. And Lester, we've talked about the grander points. Let's talk about the finer things, starting with a topic that I think a lot of people are bringing up that, frankly, I'm a bit surprised they are. Number 75, Larry Borom, drew a lot of attention over the last 3 hours for getting whooped by Matthew Judon. He's been relatively quiet, according to most people on social media, forums, etc., because he has spent a bunch of weeks not matched up against somebody at Judon's caliber since he got hosed by Rashad Gary. You tell me, Lester, you're a voice that I and many others listen to. What do you honestly think about Larry Borom? What should be our expectations? Is this a game that you look at from an offensive line standpoint and say, I expect him to get beat? Or do you think that this is a performance you're a little disappointed in?
We're talking about a three-time Pro Bowler in Judon who just had a hell of a game. I mean, he's going to have these games, and Borom's a second-year player. He struggled at times this season. He's been okay. I mean, he's nothing special. I still thought he was going to come in the year as your swing tackle, but the fact that Larry Borom struggled against a player of that caliber, I'm not surprised at all. You have Braxton Jones, rookie on the left side. So if you're the Bears, who do you help? You can't help both all the time. So you have to pick and choose what you're going to do. So, the Bears didn't help Borom quite as much as they probably should have in hindsight. I'm sure when they go back and watch film, they probably will say, yeah, we should have helped him a few times here and there. But Judon's going to get his, man. I mean, you can't shut him out. He's a talented player. Like I said, he's a three-time Pro Bowler. He is that guy on that defense, and that's what he's paid to do. He's paid to get for the quarterback. He had 12 and a half sacks, last season. He had 6 before this game, this season. So, he had 2.5 sacks against probably mostly working against Borom this game tonight. He's going to get his. Borom's fine. I still am not quite sure he's your long-term solution at right tackle for the Bears, but he's the guy this year. They're not going to put Reef in there. I mean, if they were going to put Reef in there, they would have done it during this mini bye if they were going to make a change.
I mean,
so
Lester,
I don't think it's coming.
Lester, I remember a specific game 2 years ago when Charles Leno was still a Bear, where they played the Carolina Panthers, right? And number 72, I need to use Charles Leno. Stop laughing at me. I need to use him as an example here, okay?
I got you.
Because Leno took all of the hate in the world for getting beat by really good players. But whenever Carolina matched somebody up across from him that wasn't Brian Burns, Leno smoked the matchup, looked dramatically better than the guy across from him. I think Borom is going to be fairly similar, where it's not that I think Borom is bad. It's just that I think when Borom faces a Myles Garrett or a Nick Bosa or a Rashad Gary or somebody, for lack of a better word, Lester, good, he's going to get wrecked. But when he's not facing guys of that caliber, it'll look much better. So next week against Micah Parsons, yeah, fade him. He's not going to play well. And a lot of people are probably going to call for his replacement for that exact reason. But you know what? If anything, Lester, I am impressed with how well Borum is taking care of business against guys lesser than him. That's the tackle you're looking for when you do find, hey, a low end starter or a high end swing. Because when you need, like, the Bears have enough injuries right now at interior offensive line, it is very obvious the need for depth players on the offensive line. And I am not going to passionately defend Borum as some kind of superstar that needs to remain in a starting position. But I do think offensive linemen don't grow on trees. Ask Joe Burrow, ask Justin Herbert, ask Justin Fields, frankly. And guys like Borum that can take care of business, as opposed to guys like Sam Mustipher, who are taking the most important ability is availability thing a bit further than I would like, as he sometimes seems to be getting all of his opportunities through, we benched him. Oh, no, we got to put him back in now. But it's interesting talking about Borum and even Jones specifically this season as they take their lumps, if only because I don't think I expected them to play much better than this. It's easy to forget so many of these pass rushers are minimum first rounders, often top 10 picks, you know?
Well, that's the premier position on defense, is the pass rusher. I mean, that's who gets the big bucks. That's who your high draft picks are. Get after the quarterback. It's a quarterback driven league. So what do? You get guys that can get after the quarterback. So that's what you're doing on defense. So Judon's that guy. And the Bears gave up the 4 sacks in the first half. And I know at least 2 of those I'm gonna probably, when I do sack watch, I'm not gonna put on Borum. I know there was the one where he was kind of running around, and then he had Sam Mustipher open in the flat there. I don't know what that play was, but that's a play he has to throw away. And then you mentioned the other one where he ran out of bounds. Again, that's a sack on him. That's going to be his responsibility. I'm not sure how many Borums to give up, but watching it live, I was not happy with the overall pass pro from Borum. But in the second half, it was a little cleaner. So whatever they did in the second half, part of it was the run game. I mean, if you're running the ball good and you're just pounding a defense, that slows down the ability to rush the passer. You always say you have to earn the ability to rush the passer. If the Bears can run the ball like this, then I'm not going to say they're going to beat the Cowboys. I'm saying they're going to slow down some of their chances to rush the quarterback. If that's what you want to do, you want to slow the game down. You want to make them earn their rights. And if they can run the ball against the Cowboys, slow down Micah Parsons, that's probably the best way to go. Plus, let's give Borum some help, because Parsons is pretty damn good.
I mean, if there's any struggle, Lester, right now that the Bears have, is that they only got 1 running back. I mean, 2, I guess, sometimes. They were trotting out a lot more 21 personnel than I've seen in a while. But they've only got 1 running back usually. And next week, they got 2 offensive tackles that could use all the help that they could possibly get. Not to mention, Lester, there's that whole question about whether or not Borum or Jones like it when people chip for them, as Jones gave up a particularly nasty sack last week. I know you saw it, off of a Dante Pettis chip that pushed his man straight inside. It's always interesting watching the way pass pro works out, but flipping things to the other side of the ball, Lester, this is now 2 weeks in a row where I feel as if the defense has looked markedly better with the return of number 33, Jalen Johnson, who I want to just take this opportunity to give flowers to, because it's not necessarily that Devontae Parker didn't make his plays. I know he did, but Jalen Johnson's just presence alone on the defense seems to be such a boon over what the Bears dealt with, putting Jalen Jones against Justin Jefferson. It's hard not to look at what he's done with Terry McLaurin and now Devontae Parker as one of the reasons the Bears are able to put the screws to the opposing quarterbacks like they have over the last 2 weeks. Will that work against CeeDee Lamb? We're going to find out 1 week at a time, but Jalen Johnson is a for real CB1, and it's been really cool watching him ascend.
We talked a little bit about the lull the Bears defense had there for a while. Maybe that had something to do with they're missing Johnson. I mean, he's a premier cornerback. He's clearly the Bears' best corner. Clearly. So the fact that he missed a few games there, and like you said, they were having a guy like Jalen Jones, out there. Josh Blackwell was getting reps out there. They had guys that you don't really want to see playing, and then plus it forced Kyler Gordon to kind of doing some more different things. Kendall Vilder's been okay this season, but missing the CB1. That hurt him, and now he's back and he's playing good football. And yeah, that Parker catch was outstanding. like we always, man, those guys get paid to make plays. We always talk about it. They're going to make some nice ones. That was a hell of a catch he made. It happens. And, luckily the Bears were able to overcome that.
Absolutely. I mean, for crying out loud, the whole goal of the game is to make sure that you're not giving up anything easy. Jalen is not giving up anything easy. And hey, we got to give flowers to number 9, Jaquan Brisker as well, Lester. On the all 22, I got to be honest with you. If I was grading, whether it was okay, so in hockey, I always talk about this, right? At the end of most amazing saves is a poor shot where the shot gives the goalie a chance to make a play. I don't know what McCorkle Jones was doing trying to throw that cover 2 hole shot with with a very, very lofty ball to get it in that hole. But all the same, a sweet one-handed interception is always sweet. What did you think of Brisker's day, or at the very least Brisker's pick?
I mean, that pick came 3 or 4 plays after he got kicked in the privates. So I mean, that was a great comeback from him. And did you see that slide by Mac Jones? That was that's one of those
Bizarre,
borderline dirty. I mean, when you watch the replay, you're like, yeah, he did that on purpose. That's something maybe he picked up through the years, kind of watching some other of those Patriot quarterbacks do the same kind of thing. I think Tom Brady was known for that a little bit. So yeah, that was kind of dirty. I'm not sure what happened with the NFL when they go back and watch that film, but yeah, that you can't do that when you're sliding. Put your foot down. You know what you're doing. And then the fact that he had to leave the game and then come back in and got his revenge, so to speak, that was beautiful. But how about both rookies, man? Both rookies got a pick. It's a hell of a Monday night for both those guys. Those second round picks have been in the news, so to speak, and in social media talk a lot this week because the Bears took those 2 defensive backs when they had other needs they could have addressed. But those guys are playing good football right now.
Apparently, both DBs decided that they were perfectly capable of catching the football, just like aptly named receivers, and decided to show it this week.
Exactly.
I mean, all jokes aside, I feel like Kyler Gordon has been flashing athletically for the last 3 weeks now. It's just a matter of, can he play in the right place? I mean, he is a guy who the best thing you could say about him, Lester, is he looks like an absolute superstar pickup football player that has only just been taught the defense. So mentally, he is all over the place at times, but he's competitive. And most importantly, I mean, I think he moves like one of the best players on the football field. He's just a bit diminutive. That said, wow, that interception was super fun all the same. I'm almost shocked he wasn't able to take it back all the way, but I guess that's what happens when a fast player picks the ball off in front of one of the fastest players in the NFL. So credit to Gordon for getting all the way down the field. Oh, and while we're on the subject, would you have wanted to needle Bill Belichick a little bit more and go for the points there at the end, or did you think it was classy? Did you stand up and applaud when Matt Eberflus called a kneel down on 4th and 2 from wherever, the goal line?
I think you're going up against the arguably greatest coach of all time. I think that's kind of what you do there. You just kind of take the knee. I think that's probably the best thing. You saw after the game, the 2 coaches had a nice long embrace, and it looked like Belichick had a few nice words for Eberflus. I wonder if that was something that was said during that moment they shared there, because it would have been nice to kind of, having a big touchdown to really, make that 40 points pop. But man, that's okay. Take the knee. You gain nothing from taking a knee, but if you go for it and you rub it in, now you have the wrath of Bill Belichick coming for you the next time you guys face each other. So let's just play it smart. That it wouldn't have done nothing except for just pad someone's stats.
I am a goober, and I want to pad those stats.
I know you do,
but you're probably right.
You wanted Justin Fields to throw it in there and get a nice touchdown. Of course you did.
Of course I did. Yeah. I would have been perfectly fine with a pick 6 the other way for all I care. But all the same, yeah, I mean, it's the kind of play, Lester, where I feel like you're sitting there, you're watching a football game. I mean, this is as full disclosure as it gets, right, Lester? You're watching a football game, you're riding the high off of what feels like a game sealing pick. It's 10 p.m. on a Monday night. You have work the next day. You just want to see that one more exciting play. right? Even if it is just a little lob into the end zone, I could care less, right? But all the same, what a nice win for the Bears on a rainy day in Foxborough. They walked into a place where very rarely does anybody win. What are your final thoughts on the game? Honestly, Lester, you can go any direction with this. Are you sad that they won, like some tank artists are? Are you excited that they won for a specific reason? What do you think is next for the team? Where is your head at?
Yeah, I think the most important thing now is they build off this momentum. I mean, it's nice getting a win here on the road in Foxborough. It's a game they were, I think they were 8.5-point underdogs going into Dallas next week. I think they're last I saw they were 10-point underdogs. So build on this momentum. Let's see if the offense can kind of do what it did a little bit, because man, the offense against the Commanders was pitiful.
400 yards, pitiful, but yes, pitiful.
Yeah, but in the red zone, they turtled. I mean, it just looked horrible. The play calling kind of got weird. I thought this was probably Luke Getsy's best called game so far as a coordinator. And again, we're talking about a first time play caller this year as well, so he's learning on the job. So let's see these guys learn and grow from this. Let's see them build on this. And I'm not expecting to win against the Cowboys, but let's see some more competent offense, some more tough hits philosophy style defense, and I'll be happy.
Man, I'll tell you what, I think there's nothing more complicated than judging play calling, because to use an example, so Fields has done a great job timing up a lot of those jet sweep plays, because in case you don't know, not you, Lester, but somebody else out there, what makes those end around plays work is that you have to consistently time the snap for your normal handoffs and your normal pitches to where it doesn't look different to the defense when you take the snap and you give it to the guy coming across. And there's a window. You got to be like, you can be close enough, but that's something you got to do. And the Bears were able to pull it off. But Lester, it's really easy talking about play calling to look at a lot of the things in Washington that didn't work and say those are obviously bad play calls because the Bears didn't make them work. And then look at things that happened in this game and say those were obviously good play calls because duh, they worked. But little things like the going empty and kicking a screen out, just like Fields did, understanding what his hot route was. Nice job. Honestly, way to go. If anything, I think the most important takeaway from this evening was the following. The Bears won. And why does that matter? Well, Lester, I've been doing a lot of dwelling on this because as the Bears lost an emphatic game to a team that I would have told you, Lester, that they may not win a single other game, talking about the Commanders, and then they came out and beat the Packers. Woo-hoo. But I keep finding myself dwelling on the Los Angeles Chargers, who, ironically enough, just lost, to make my point a little clearer, because they are the nerd's dream, Lester. They got a young quarterback. That young quarterback showed he was a boss, and they only went 3-13 in that season. They came back the season after that, and whoa, would you believe it? Whoa. They disappointed. They underperformed. Why? Now, look, if you ask Kyle Shanahan the most important thing in football, he will tell you the most meatball-y answer possible. You just got to be more physical than the guys across from you. And I wonder, Lester, is there some truth to the idea that you can't win without first building a winning culture? I know there are a lot of fans, myself included, especially over the last week, that couldn't help but think about just how much of a haul the Bears could get in a trade down if somehow they lost all their games and ended up picking up number 2, right? But if they had lost literally every single one of their football games, they'd gotten doormatted by the Patriots, doormatted by the Cowboys, doormatted by the Bills. How does that team pick itself up next year and do anything meaningful? The Lions were the number one offense in the NFL for 5 weeks, and they were 1-4 in that stretch because their team is they're just accustomed to being the Lions, and the Lions lose football games. I mean, Lester, you laugh like I made a joke, but it's real.
It's true. Yeah,
like football can be such a complicated game, and yet winning teams win and losing teams lose, right? And so here in the first year of a regime, I think wins like this, marching into young quarterback kill zone that is Foxborough and coming out with not just a win, right? This isn't the Texans win where the Bears ran for 281 yards and overcame a quarterback that seemed dead set on losing. As much as I love Justin Fields, this was a game where quarterback running back, offensive line, even going through a Lucas Patrick, a Lucas Patrick injury that may be a problem going forward. Receivers that weren't particularly good. Like, you could see whatever you want about this Bears offense, and it was still an emphatic victory. Does that mean they're going to win out? Lester, I don't know. Does that mean they're going to beat the Lions? I still don't know. They could lose every game on their schedule from here. I don't know. But I would have said the same thing about tonight's game, and they not only won, but they won emphatically. I, for one, am really excited to see what comes up next because I didn't love the Eberflus hire because obviously, like, I wanted Brian Dable, and I'm not going to be a stick in the mud about whether he was my guy or not. This is the kind of win you look at and you say, it wasn't just Justin Fields' magic because the defense played too well for that. They let 2 blown coverages by them against Bailey Zappi, and then they tightened the screws and locked that kid down just like his name was Mac Jones. They picked up on exactly what the Patriots were doing and just screwed him down both. It was awesome. I mean, nothing but good things to say about the coaching in this one, which is really exciting. I mean, Lester, how long has it been since the Bears got extra time before a game and they actually looked better for it?
Oh, that's a good
right?
point. Yeah. I mean, in the Matt Nagy era, they think they lost out of every either bye or mini bye, so to speak. They lost all the time. So it was nice to see this happen here.
Right. I mean, I'm by no means saying, Lester, that like this is a season. Well, actually, that's not fair. This is a season changing win. Just like how last week felt like a season changing loss. It's the NFL. We don't play 162 games, right? We have to be super We have to basically act like every single football game is the equivalent of 10 baseball games packed into 3 hours. It's volatile and a lot changes every single snap. But I got to say, this was not just a fun game, but a game that definitely casts some side eye on, hey, can the Bears steal one from the Vikings or from the Vikings? Do you think that this Bears team that we saw tonight matches up well against a Packers team that seems to be getting worse by the week? I don't see why it wouldn't. A Lions team that is becoming rudderless as that number 1 offense in the NFL scored 6 points against the Dallas defense, who's super good. But where did the octane go? It's got me, I don't want to say believing because it's not like I'm thinking playoffs, but this is the kind of win, Lester, that makes you say, okay, hey, maybe we have something. And if the Bears are going to win their way down to picking like 11th or something like that, these are exactly the wins that I think you want to see because they're the kinds of wins that make you think you're winning for a reason instead of just beating a team that's worse than you by the skin of their teeth, right?
Well, this kind of goes back to what we talked about on the pre-show a little bit. You know, coaches and players don't tank. There is no tank in their vocabulary. They want to win every game, and there is no better thing to change the culture of a franchise than getting wins. You know, you don't change the culture, the mentality of a team by losing. You know, these wins matter in the big picture. I know as a lot of fans, they'd rather have that nice draft pick. But like you said, if you lose out and you just look horrible all the way down, you know, going to the end of the season and you pick, you know, top 2, top 3, you know, what do you have coming back next season? You got a bunch of losers on your team.
Right.
You know what I mean? You have to learn how to win some of these games. And I'm not like you, I'm not expecting playoffs, but a few more nice wins, you know, as the season progresses will help to show these guys, hey, we can do it. We can pull these big games out on prime time. We can go to Foxborough and beat a Patriot team when we're favored to lose by 8.5 points. You know, we can pull these out. We can be physical at the line of scrimmage. We can, you know, bully the ball in for touchdowns when we have to. This shows it. This shows the culture is there. And it's not sexy right now. I mean, it's not beautiful football to watch from a modern NFL standpoint, but it's a winning football. And this kind of goes back to how the Bears were coaching earlier in the season. We want to see, you know, more throws. We want to see more wide open offense, but they were coaching because that's how they felt they had to coach to win. And if that's what's going to happen, if they're going to pull out a few of these dubs on the way, I think that's the best thing for the franchise.
And Lester, it's also worth mentioning that not everybody out there that is a Bears fan is Jeff Berkus. Jeff Berkus basically won't miss an NFL football game, and there are a lot of people out there that just watch the Bears. I would encourage everybody who just watches the Bears to either watch another football game, or go look at passing statistics right now, because offense is lower than it's
Yeah.
been since 2009. I also want a bunch of wide open offense, but really watching, I mean, the Seahawks are high octane, the Chiefs are high octane, the Bills are high octane, and that might just about round the list out. There are a bunch of other teams that can score really quickly, like the Eagles can, but they're not exploding down the field so much as they're churning, and you're seeing a lot more. Yes, I know, Lester, you're already thinking the joke about how the NFL is cyclical, but yes, running the ball is getting that much more efficient as every single week goes on. I forgot to mention the Dolphins. They're crazy explosive. I love watching them. But the
Yeah.
point is that I also want to see passing like it's 2020, watching that crazy Chiefs Rams game that seemed to go on forever with points up and down the field. But we aren't seeing any of those games anymore. It's not just the Bears. If anything, 33 points will almost assuredly raise the Bears' scoring average to where, shockingly enough, Lester, this Bears team should be probably 25th in scoring when everything's said and done at the end of this week. And so I don't want to sit here and act like Luke Getsy's just the greatest, right? We're 7 games in to a first year play caller. Gonna take some lumps, playing with some pretty poor offensive line, even on their best days, right? A receiver group that is limited at the very least. But games like this make you feel like somebody like Justin Fields, to use an example, Lester, how does he pick himself up after almost seeing his season end multiple times against Washington if he had gotten cranked against the Patriots, then went into Dallas and got destroyed, right? What is at the end of the tunnel that's worth it? What drives him to keep his habits pure when play like that isn't working? It's not successful. It's not winning games, right? A game like this, I think, does a lot. I think it can be a real centralizing force for the Bears as they go forward. Where again, I mean, Lester, it's not just the Bears. There is nobody that can keep up with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and they got to play both of those guys in 2 weeks. There is nobody blocking Micah Parsons and Demarcus Lawrence. They got to play them the week after this. Like, it's not an easy schedule, but at the same time, I had no expectations for this one, and suddenly I'm really, really excited to see just what they can come up with. I don't know, very upbeat, because the best part is, Lester, win, lose, or tie, if they can keep looking just spunky and plucky and creative and willing to find a way to see what they can generate, I will take all the losses, wins, or whatever else in the world, and we could just sit back and watch a young quarterback and a young team develop. This was a lot of fun.
This is what we wanted, right? We want to see the young guys develop. We want to see Justin Fields of all develop. We want to see Braxton Jones, Tevin Jenkins. We want to see these guys develop. I want to see them win, of course, but if they're playing good competitive football, that's what ultimately matters. Then if you get a couple wins like this, then I think you call this a successful season.
We said it earlier, but the difference between 3-13 and upwards of 7-10 was always going to be Justin Fields. This was a game. Okay, we said a while ago. We've talked on this show before, Lester, and yes, I get it. It's sensationalist. It's overreactive. It's hyperbolic. But which of the games would Trevor Siemian have potentially played better in? I think the Patriots destroy Trevor Siemian
Yeah.
on a night like tonight, and Fields was. So there are going to be some that are going to say Fields wasn't the whole difference, right? But Fields' legs took a defender or two out of every single play. This was a classic Lamar Jackson style victory where the quarterback's ability to create pressure on a defense that's just not set up to play quarterbacks like him was able to jimmy loose all sorts of seams and cracks in the offense or in the defense that they just did not know was coming. Fun to watch, especially if they can find a way to build a passing attack off of this, which it's going to take some time, Lester. I mean, they can't go necessarily screen or deep shot forever, but if they can keep up exactly what they got here and use enough of the designed runs to keep defenses off balance without necessarily risking Fields' health, I think they may be able to find something, and that would be awfully fun. But all the same, Lester, we will have a lot more to say about this tomorrow. You mentioned this right before the show. We got we got Bear and Balance coming at you tomorrow, Tuesday, 6 p.m. And then you stay on the YouTube channel because at 8 p.m., I'll be live with whatever all 22 that I've watched at the time. We'll play it fast, we'll play it loose, and we'll have a great evening of Bears analysis. Lester, anything else coming up you want the people to know about?
It's a condensed week. I mean, last week we had an extra long week. This week's condensed week with the game on Monday night. So a lot of the stuff on the channel we kind of up in the air. I know Bears in the Beers usually a Wednesday thing, but I think we had a couple guys traveling. Not sure how that's going to go. But as far as the podcast channel, we got Bear and Balanced, Bears Banter, Bill Zimmerman, Making Monsters with Taylor and Dylan's coming up as well. 10-minute drills coming up. That's also going to be on the YouTube channel. And of course, on the site, we'll have Sack Watch coming up. We'll have, Jeff's 10 thoughts. Everything's packed. Every day there's something fresh and new on Windy City Gridiron. So make sure you guys check us out there, here on Second City Gridiron YouTube channel, and of course on the podcast channel as well.
And speaking of, Lester, when you talk about new things, hey, if you're interested in a preview stream about just something, probably not 5 hours, obviously, but an all 22 based breakdown style stream about what the opponent that the Bears are playing, what potential cracks that the Bears could try to act on, let me know what time works for you between Thursday or Friday, whether that's afternoon or evening. Just let me know, because I know that Thursday night football is obviously competitive, but I want to figure out what works best for you guys so that we can potentially add something else to the calendar. But hey, Lester, a lot of stuff on the site. We're obviously excited. This kind of win does a lot for Bears fan spirits. So certainly us content creators are juiced about it. And until next time, Bears fans, bear down, and thanks so much for bearing with me. Lester, we are clear. So we got a whole bunch of comments that we've had.
Yeah.
A whole bunch of comments. So yeah, Alex, I know exactly what you mean. When you say don't go up against bootleg, you mean on Thursday, right? Because EJ and Brett do a great show on Thursday Night Football. I have never, Lester, I don't know about you, I've never really been into the whole watch party thing. Like, I would rather watch the game, whether
I don't
with
even
my
like
family
or
or
for me, I can't stand the Manning cast. I don't even watch like that. Like, I just want to watch the real game.
right.
Like I don't want to hear guys talking goofy and stuff and acting goofy and just reacting. I want to see some actual analysis. And sometimes it sucks, the ESPN or the Fox or CBS crew, but I just rather watch that myself.
Right. I mean, like I'm all about it at this point that like we're seeing different things, or it's great that there's all sorts of content out there. I know that there are a lot of people that get a lot of play from doing the whole like watching the game and also talking to people.
Oh, it's
God,
fun.
Lester, I can barely watch the game and tweet, let
Yeah.
alone try watching the game and tweeting.
Yeah.
And also, like, I love you guys, entertaining you guys. Plus, the worst part is that I feel like Lester, I can't possibly do analysis in the moment that's near as good as I can do just having
Later, yeah.
watched it for a little bit. And yeah, you get it. But it's fun. All to say that one thing that people pointed out in the comments that I want to just throw a Kusai's comment up. This is totally true. And it's something we talked about in the All 22 stream just last week. That Justin Fields has looked a lot better, Lester. I don't know if you are in the studio, when the Bears get a blocker out in front of him on these bootlegs. A lot of teams are committing that backside defensive end and having him rush upfield to take the quarterback. And when the Bears are pulling when the Bears are pulling somebody across the formation to stifle that backside DE, not only is it giving Fields a little bit more wiggle room when it comes to how he distributes the ball, but it sure seems as if it's creating that effective bootleg action that they always wanted things to be, instead of creating an automatic incompletion with real risk for a sack. You know what I mean?
Well, it gives more options when you have the guy coming back across the formation. If the defensive end chased and he's not there, now that's a guy that's in the pattern in the flat for an outlet. Or if he's coming across the late, now you chip and go. I mean, it gives more options. Or like you said, it's a lead blocker too when he can go off there. So it's again, we talk about the Luke Getsy play calling. He's learning as he goes too. He's learning what he can get away with. Not committing some of those runs, and teams are more worried about Fields, and that's a good thing. Again, that's going to open up lanes for the running backs now, because now they have to always be cognizant of that backside boot. And it's good to see that the Bears are able to kind of, throw that wrinkle in this week.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm sure the defenses will do something, but I can't help but think, Lester, just talking off the top of my head, that the worst part about the way that the Eagles have, or not the Eagles specifically, but the worst part about the way that defenses have been adjusting to the Bears' bootlegs is that it's not unusual, right? People are playing this with literally any quarterback, any offense that involves bootlegs. It doesn't matter whether you're Jimmy G, Daniel Jones, or Justin Fields. Just send the backside DE, get the guy in his face, force an incompletion, best case scenario, take a sack, create a turnover where they play. But this just option of pulling somebody across forces the defense to have to adjust to something abnormal. I mean, let me put it this way, Lester. When you have to change your rules or invent a coverage to stop something that the opposing offense does, it's a lot more work than just saying, okay, we're just going to run more cover two than usual. You know what I mean? Like when you've already been practicing a specific adjustment to counter something that offenses were doing, naked bootlegs, that changing or like the way that you run those bootlegs, instead saying, who cares about the sneak flat? Let's just get somebody over there and commit somebody to a blocker so that our quarterback can have more time, I think is a great way to force the defense to think. Because if you've seen the way I've seen it, Lester, once you can get a defense thinking, you can catch him hesitating. And that's how any offense, regardless of personnel, can just create more yards.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's all about making the defense have to worry about more things. The more things you show you can do successfully, more things they have to worry about. And Justin Fields, man, he's that guy, man. He's going to get there. It's going to take him a little time. It just he has too much good to make me think that he's not going to be able to get to where he wants to be. He may not be top of the line elite in the NFL, but man, he's going to be a damn good quarterback when it's all said and done.
If there's anything I think us Bears analysts need to say, Lester, we just need to start shouting from the rooftops that there is nobody. I love the Bears. There's nobody on this roster that's a like touchdown threat, right? Like I love the Bears. Cole Kmet's great. Thanks for the catch. But when you look at the Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb or I think it's Dalton Schultz. Get Dalton Schultz and Dawson Knox confused all the time. But like CeeDee Lamb, Dalton or Dawson Knox or Dalton Schultz. See, I did it again. CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz will be able to get in the end zone for you. When you look at the Patriots, Tyquan Thornton is a great red zone weapon, as is Devontae Parker. When you look at the Eagles, it's every single player on their roster. When you look at the Chiefs, it's Kelsey, it's their running backs, it's like all sorts of players. And Pop, specifically, we're talking about their passing game. I love the Bears. I think Fields is great. I worry that we're going to get way too focused on the fact that, well, the Bears were pretty good, but they got gummed up in the red zone a lot. I expect that to not change. Like more weeks like what we saw against Washington, Lester, wouldn't surprise me. Not where they go completely scoreless, but the Bears don't have anybody. Okay, as much as we used to make fun of him, Lester, Jimmy Graham's a great example of what I'm talking about, where real red zone threats can change the red zone calculus, right? It's great that the Bears can run the ball a little bit in the red zone. Guys, I am not trying to just tank on them, right? It's more pointing out that this is an offense that, as it develops, is going to look better 20-20, right? And then it's probably going to get fouled up. I mean, the difference between a good offense and a great offense, or an offense with some pieces and an offense willing to go win the Super Bowl, is what you do in the red zone. Because a decent offense that isn't great can go get 3. Good offenses go get 7. And so I say that, Lester, not to be boring, but more to say that, like, we got to set the benchmark correctly. There's going to be somebody out there, Lester, that's going to say, oh, Lester thinks Fields is the guy. Well, then why can't they score more than 15 points a game? And it's like, if they kick 5 field goals off of 5 successful drives that all stop between the 20 and the 5-yard line, I'm fine with it. I get it. Red zone passing. Gotta butter the bread eventually. But the Bears' offensive staff is just not so good that I'm gonna cry real tears over the touchdowns that they don't get. That's what you spend the money for. That's what the DK Metcalfs, the Tyler Lockett's are for. You know what I mean, Lester? Like, how do you feel about all that?
I mean, when you get down to red zone, it's about your playmakers and your scheme. I mean, you can do stuff 20-20 where you can kind of get through just by doing things. But when you get down there, you need a guy that you can trust to go up and get it. You need a Jimmy Graham type. Maybe it's N'Keal Harry. He hasn't been that in his career, but I mean, it's possible. He has the size, he has the frame. He could be that
He had
guy.
a catch.
He had a catch. Cole Kmet hasn't had many opportunities, and when he hasn't really cashed in on those. But he's still a young player. Can he be that guy? Again, I have my doubts, but we'll have to wait and see. Darnell Mooney is your wide receiver one right now, and I think he's a really good football player. He's not that kind of guy. That just a guy that can get open. He's not a Devontae Adams, to kind of pull that example where he would just do things off the line of scrimmage where he just gets open off the release. He's just that good. Mooney is not at that level. You got to kind of scheme him open. And I think, again, we're talking about Getsy. That's something he'll learn in time. He'll have to do some of those rub routes, some of those crossers down there, kind of scheme guys open in the flat. And I want to see more Kerry Blasingame too. I think the Bears are kind of showing the power football down there. That's a great chance now. You're showing the power football. Now you sneak out Blasingame in the flat. Those fullbacks get a lot of cheap touchdowns that way. I think that's something the Bears can do, and they can scheme those up in the red zone because, like you said, the red zone play has to pick up in order for this team to be more consistent putting points on the board.
And Lester, I love that you said that because in the most positive way I can say it, that's why I want to point out that as somebody who's trying to lay out the rubric for how we can all judge the Bears together, I don't expect it to get a lot better. If it does, I will be surprised and happy just like anybody else is. But this year in particular, I mean, somebody in the comments, I'm going to highlight him. I think it's Ace said, look at Kyler Murray with and without DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah.
Where before DeAndre Hopkins had played, the Cardinals could not score in the red zone to save their life. After, suddenly they looked like an offense. Oh my gosh, Lester, who could have believed it? And I do think that when you've got that kind of player, look, I get it. DeAndre Hopkins doesn't grow on trees. If he did, I would love to get one ASAP at the next DeAndre Hopkins sale. But with that, as we wait for the Bears to potentially build up a draft pick that they can use to grab a Jordan Addison, to grab like one of the other weapons that are out there potentially in the first or second round, we're going to have a red zone or an offense that will be a lot better with room than without than once they get into the red zone. And that's okay. I mean, I actually think, Lester, that there's a lot that you can take from the fact that this Bears offense generates a lot less 3 and outs than it felt like a lot of the Nagy era Bears did, right? I mean, the fact that they're able to go out there, grab a first down, grab another first down, bummer, they didn't get that one, and then they punt. Feels like even as boom or bust as they've been in the past before this game, a signs of a healthier offense long term than what they do in the red zone. If they were better in the red zone, they would just be better, right? Like we can't. I do think that, Lester, there's a bit of having your cake and eating it too, where we can say, I just want them to be better in the red zone, but also their supporting cast sucks. And it's like, well, what makes the difference between the Bills, who have Stephon Diggs, Dawson Knox, Gabe Davis, and a litany of others, and the Bears? It's what you do in the red zone. Right. So it's a great way that we can just look at it and say that's not the standard of comparison, so to speak, here. I think that we're going to be watching them develop on a play-to-play basis. And if they get to the red zone and succeed, great. If they don't, I'm not going to be holding them accountable or somebody like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you see, like you said, the third down stuff tonight was great. They had 11 third down conversions, 11 for 18, I think it was. I forget the stat, but what was like their most third down conversions since like 2015 or 16 or something like that. So, they're moving the ball tonight. They showed that they can kind of do that, and we'll kind of see how they keep going. But like I said, it's about playmakers right now. They're kind of lacking in that category. Maybe someone emerges, maybe Equanimeous St. Brown, builds off his nice game. Maybe he becomes more of that guy. We haven't seen him yet be that guy yet. He's kind of just like a piece, he'll catch it if he's open. We haven't seen him kind of make the contested catches thus far, but maybe that's who he'll become. I mean, he's still fairly young in his NFL career. Velus Jones Jr., he didn't get much of a chance tonight, but I mean, at some point you got to throw him out there, see what he can do. So, Dante Pettis kind of, he is who he is. We'll see what happens there. N'Keal Harry, let's see what he can do. So you got to start giving these guys chances to make plays. And maybe they get lucky and someone kind of emerge.
And Valus in particular, Lester, I'll go to bat for. And no, it's not because I spent hours on hours making a Valus video.
That was a hell of a video, let me tell
Thank
you
you.
right now.
It's worth remembering that Valus Jones missed all of training camp, meetings or not. He was out and not able to run. Right. This wasn't just like, he was out with a shoulder injury, but at least he could move around. This was a hamstring problem. So he couldn't run at all for the first 9 weeks of the season, 6 weeks of training camp, and then also the first 4 weeks of the season. Integrating him into the offense is going to be a slow process for a guy that was always, I mean, ironically, for somebody that was 25, old, right? And so, I think that there are a lot of people that I think are immediately running to call him a bust, right? And I don't know. I think we got to give him more time. I mean, rookie wide receivers didn't used to have the expectations that we have that we've put on them now, but they do now. And Sky Moore, if that's the case, is a much bigger bust than Valus Jones was, despite how many people wanted Sky Moore immediately. But Lester, I've got a bit of a lightning round for you. And by the way, if you ever want to go, you can. I
pretty soon because I have to get my stats card article written before tomorrow morning. So
and it's almost midnight. But so a couple trade questions.
Oh my God.
All right. Okay. So somebody asks, do you guys see the Bears trading Montgomery at the deadline? Go.
Never. I think it's more likely they re-sign him before the end of the season than they trade him at the deadline. I just think they like what Montgomery brings to the table. He's not as dynamic as Khalil Herbert, but they like his game as a football player. And they've talked about him. I mean, I don't think that's just lip service. I think they really, truly like Montgomery. And he's just a great locker room guy, too. I think there's certain guys you just got to weigh that part of it. You know, what he does overall for the team. And yeah, he's not a perfect schematic fit for what they want to do. But again, we talk about good football players that are homegrown. He's a good football player. If you can bring him back and the price is right, I think you bring him back. I can't see him being traded.
I can't help but think that if there is value to be gained for Montgomery, I wouldn't mind it. But
there was a trade today. Who was it?
It was
James Robinson for a sixth
round pick,
a conditional sixth. So this is what you're looking for Montgomery, because they're similarly statistically players. They're about the same amount. That's all you're going to get. So if you trade Demo, you're looking for a fifth round at the most return, and most Bears fans say that's not enough.
And
so why trade?
I would tell you, it's so complicated, Lester, because
enough.
I love Khalil Herbert. I love Khalil Herbert. I mean, plus fifth round picks, as much as we would dunk on him, Kendall Vildor in his third year now is a very cost controlled role playing cornerback. That's valuable. The more of those you can get, the better. And so I'm not necessarily saying I hate Dave Montgomery. It's not that simple, right? He was having an extend me year until last week. And then this week, I thought he got outplayed by his backup. That's such is the complicated life of an NFL running back. But more interesting one. Would you trade? They said Monty for Elijah Moore, Joe Calzagano. Don't take this the wrong way. Would you trade for Elijah Moore at all, Lester? Would you trade for any receiver?
I think, again, the price is right. I probably would. I don't think Poles will. I think Poles going to be content to hold on to his draft picks. He wants to go into next offseason with all of his picks. I can't see him going for more, because I think what's more going to cost? I mean, you're talking probably a second rounder for getting a guy like Moore. I mean, I don't think the Bears want to give that up. I think that the way they review this team right now, they realize where they are as a franchise. So I can't see him making a trade for a guy that's going to cost you that much.
Mm-hmm. Not to mention, Lester, I'll build on that. So the Bears just beat the Patriots with a bunch of chumps. I don't see why, other than being excited, this prompts them getting a better guy. Yeah. Do you think they're making the playoffs? No, I don't. Anyways, I don't even think making the playoffs is necessarily a good goal. I love it. But I actually do wonder, okay, man, that brings up a real complicated psychological question, right, Lester? Is it better for the Bears to go 7-10 versus 9-8? Just because the draft slot probably gets literally 8 slots better at that point. Or is it better to go 9-8 because you establish a winning culture immediately, and winning culture has benefits well beyond just like draft slot? Ooh, that's a good question. And I actually don't think I'm qualified to pick out an answer. But I will say that I think everybody is often very quick to forget that this isn't Madden, where you sign somebody and they instantly know the offense and you
Yeah.
call the play and they immediately run the route and you know exactly where they are. We've already seen enough chemistry related issues with Justin Fields not really having a great feel for where his receivers are. And so I don't think that adding a DJ Moore, an Elijah Moore, a Denzel Mims, a T Higgins for just this year, like if they're part of the future plan, that's different, right? But specifically adding one of those receivers with just this year in mind is getting real gassed up on an exciting Bears game and nothing more. I don't think it helps the team as much as it helps us feel better, if that makes sense. Because right now it's not as if the Bears passing offense is so prolific that we necessarily need to add T Higgins to pour gas on the fire, especially since Lester, you and I both know it. Us same fans that would talk about trying to get T Higgins for the price of just a second round pick are the ones they're going to say, well, somebody's got to trade a third for Quinn, right? Like the price would be everything. And you pay a premium at the trade deadline. No way about it.
I think if the Bears do make a trade for a guy, I think they'll be more likely sellers. But if they do trade for a guy, they're going to trade. It'll be a N'Keal Harry type trade where it's a 6th or 7th round conditional type pick, a low round draft pick for another reclamation type receiver project, like a Denzel Mims, something like that. I just can't see him spending a premium pick for a guy. Like you said, it takes too much to learn the offense to kind of get acclimated to the system, to kind of get comfortable with Justin Fields. So there's just no point at this, considering where the Bears are as a franchise.
It just, as unsexy as signing Alan Lazard and Nelson Aguilar is in free agency, you have to beg the question on how much better is the guy you're trading for than Alan Lazard is, especially since Brandon here mentions if Carolina was open to moving DJ Moore, I'd love it on a personal level, but I really doubt he does anything for us this year. Brandon, I wouldn't be surprised if your own calculus changes if I told you that Carolina needs a 1 in the deal and then wants another future day 2 pick. I mean, Lester, I'm sure you've seen enough of these NFL trades to know that as much as we could value DJ as like a late first rounder, DJ Moore is a core component of this Panthers system going forward, as are most players Bears fans actually want and don't look at and go, he's a bum, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to pay through the nose to get those guys to trade them to you at all. It's not like trading DJ Moore, or it's not like trading DJ Moore for 2 second-round picks is going to net the Panthers a better player or even a better pair of players if you combine the two than DJ Moore already is. And his contract is already signed, extended. He's a part of their core future. So there's stuff like that that's easier to theoretically talk about than I think it is to do, especially when you're in a spot like where the Bears are, where losing, it's not encouraged. It's just not super discouraged right now. You know what I mean, Lester? Where losses, bummer. But to other teams, like let's use the Colts as an example, every loss puts Frank Reich that much more on the hot seat. And they're the kinds of teams that are going to do whatever they can to go make some kind of crazy move. I mean, there's a reason that last year the Rams traded a 2nd-round pick I think it was even 2 picks, but at least a 2nd-round pick for Von Miller. It's because they were desperate to make something happen. I don't think the Bears are desperate enough.
Nah, yeah, there's no desperation. The Bears know who they are. The Bears know what they have. They're gonna, like I said, if anything, they're gonna try and trade off a couple vets if they can. But I wouldn't be surprised if they stand pat. I mean, I know there's been some buzz about a Robert Quinn trade. There's been a buzz of they named like 3 or 4 teams. I think it was Courtney Cronin might have tweeted about it, or I'm not sure. One of those beat guys had a tweet about it earlier today. So it's possible, but I wouldn't be surprised they held on to them. I don't think they're going to get the value they want back. And if there's a bidding war, maybe you get lucky and you pull a 4th, but I can't see you getting a premium, a day 1 or a day 2 pick for Robert Quinn.
I can't either, but at the same time, I will be the first to say, Lester, that I don't know what conversations look like when these guys actually start calling. For all I know, Lester, these guys are going to call Quinn's agent, and Quinn's agent's going to say, you think he's been trying this year? He's known he was
Yeah.
going to get traded since he stepped into camp. Like, we don't know. This game is much more human than we think. Not to mention, it was Quinn, if I'm not mistaken, that came just a hair short of like 3 sacks in this game alone, where he was just flying around the edge and just about got his hand on the ball before the ball got passed away. I know the sack numbers aren't there. I know he's had a rough couple games. This is not the system for him. And while I don't, okay, so a lot of Bears fans talk, Lester, I know you've talked about this too. Like, you're probably on the same page as me, that there are a lot of people that looked at Quinn's 18.5 sack season last year and said, why on earth didn't the Bears trade him then? Lovingly, it's because the other teams in the NFL weren't stupid enough to pay sticker price for a guy who just had the best season of his life. So now he's the guy who just had an 18.5 sack season. And this year doesn't look awesome. But wouldn't surprise me, Lester, if he would neither get traded for the 18.5 sack price, nor would he get traded for some 6th round pick or something. We're still talking about Robert Quinn. And for a team like, could be the Eagles, right? Could be the Chiefs, could be all sorts of teams out there, the Bills, the Rams, ironically, that might just want that little bit of extra pass rushing juice. A Robert Quinn trade could make a lot of sense. But it'll be interesting to see what happens, I think, because it's, especially if he could go to a team that plays on turf where I think he's a little bit more successful, he could be the difference to not the Bears. And I just don't think NFL evaluators are so dense as to not be able to see past the fact that he hasn't looked good in a 4-3 that's really horrible rushing the passer just as a unit, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's some value there, but it's not going to be the right return you want. We talked about it on Bear and Balance, I think, last week. You know, the Bears may have just valued his veteran leadership on this defense. I mean, we saw what he's done for Dominique Robinson, who has picked up some moves from Quinn. I mean, he's talked about how much he's meant to him, his development as a pass rusher. So maybe they just valued that more than the 6th or 5th round pick they would have gotten in return. Maybe they felt, well, let's hold on to him, see what he can do for our young guys, and kind of see what he kind of give these players coming up. And then if a deal presents itself at the deadline, we'll move him then. But if not, we'll hold on to him. And whether he gets traded or not, I don't think he'll be on the team much, after this season. I think his cap is one where you can cut him with minimal dead money after this season. So I can't see him sticking around here. It's actually a very cap friendly contract for a pass rusher. If they were to trade him, I mean, I'm sure that's probably entices some other teams that want to come after him, which probably could be why there are those 4 or 5 teams mentioned in that stuff earlier today that looking for him, because
he's not a rental.
It's not a lot of money, and he's under contract for a couple more years. So it's if he can kind of give you the pressures and stuff, and maybe he's not going to have a Von Miller like impact like he did for the Rams a year ago, but he's still a good football player, good pass rush. He'll make an impact wherever he ends up.
I can't help thinking that he's the deal that has the biggest chance to surprise us, Lester. Because like you're saying, there's a lot more to like about the Robert Quinn trade for the buyer, right?
Yeah.
That meets the eye. It's not a rental. You're looking at a player that is a pass rush specialist. Everybody loves a good pass rush specialist. You know the terms that he generally needs to succeed. So if you're trading for him, you're ideally not a doofus, and you know how to put him in those positions to succeed that he will succeed with. You get that extra year, like we talked about, especially if the Bears retain salary. He's cheap, and he's a former first-round talent that has the production to back it up. I'm not trying to talk anybody into thinking that a first-round pick's coming, but Lester, you heard it here first. If the Bears got like a late 3rd-round pick from a contender, it's just not going to shock me, because it's not a rental. It'd be a 5th-round pick if it was just this year, but it's a trade for this year and also next year. And I think you got to pay a little bit for that. But Lester, I know you got work to do. I've got baby things to do. So feel free to sign off. Do we have any final questions before we all go get set for tomorrow's Bearsaganza? Between Bears Over Beers and the All 22 stream.
Now we're good. Let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah, I think so. Perfect.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
Well, guys, thanks so much. Okay, so one quick thing. Soon, probably not tomorrow, because it's the Bearsaganza, and I don't want to throw anything out there. But pretty soon, we're going to change the name. It's going to go from RPO Plus Second City Gridiron to Second City Gridiron. We've been calling it Second City Gridiron all year. This has been in the works. We talked about this at the start of the offseason. Nothing's actually changing. This was always the plan, and we're just changing the name so that we don't need to change it again. Again, everything is going to stay the same. Nothing weird, but we want to make sure that we get everything set as it should be so that we're set for what the future will look like. And then we'll figure out how to do all the NFL content or whatever else things may look like as we go forward. Thanks so much, Brandon, for the comments. We can't wait to get into it. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching the game. Love it. Like we love a good Bears win. I'm gonna get this podcast posted ASAP. Lester, you always do a bazillion things, and we will see you guys tomorrow. So bear down. Thanks so much for bearing with us.